World hunger and food shortages in most parts of the developing world are a recurring problem. Based on the United Nations, since 2015, famine has steadily been on the rise. In 2018, a huge number of individuals, reaching an estimated number of 821 million, suffered from hunger around the world. The enormous challenge mankind is targeting, and the hopes for reaching the zero hunger target by 2030, will not be met if this continues and nothing changes. Genetically modified crops in this context biotechnology offers promising potential. In particular, modern molecular genetics and genetic engineering techniques are helping to increase the efficacy of crop improvement programs. In the future, biotechnology may also increase global crop production while encouraging environmentally sustainable agricultural production patterns. Around 500,000 of children go blind as a result of vitamin A deficiency. With the help of biotechnology, a new type of rice, golden rice, is developed. Unlike regular rice, it contains high amounts of vitamin A that will keep children healthier. But how can this so-called biotechnology help us to solve worldwide problems such as famine? Recombinant DNA is the process of recombining DNA from two different species. Inserted into a host organism to produce new genetic combinations, it can be valuable to science, medicine, agriculture, and industry. The fundamental concept of recombinant DNA is to isolate, characterize, and manipulate genes into humans' favor, which can entirely change how we live. Human life is greatly affected by three factors: food deficiency, health problems, and environmental issues. Food and health are basic human requirements beside a clean and safe environment. With the world's population increasing at a greater rate, the human need for food is rapidly increasing too. Based on Harvard's Business Review, food demand is expected to increase anywhere between 59% to 98% by 2050. Humans require safe food at a reasonable price. But how would we solve this problem? Unlike traditional approaches to overcome food deficiency issues through the process of animal breeding that only continues the cycle of passing faulty genes, humans started using genetic engineering that utilizes modern technologies and approaches, such as molecular cloning and transformation, which are less time-consuming, produces more reliable products. For example, compared to conventional farming of tomatoes, we started altering the faulty genes such as short shelf life. In doing so, we can prolong its shelf life, survive harsh condition, and benefits humans more and cause less problem, and it improves the quality of tomatoes that humans consume. Our ancient ancestors thousands of years ago used a method of controlling the offspring of an organism. This method is called selective breeding. The breeder will select an organism with desirable traits and then breed them together. The most known product for selective breedings are dogs that we domesticated. Dogs came from gray wolves that are known as apex predators at the time. Wolves that show less aggression are bred together, therefore producing offsprings that are more docile. Natural selection and selective breeding can both cause changes. The distinction between the two is that natural selection happens naturally, and selective breeding can happen when humans interfere. The idea of recombinant DNA was proposed first by Peter Loban, a graduate student from the biochemistry department at Stanford University Medical School in 1969. 3 years later, the first recombinant molecule containing DNA from different organisms was assembled in Paul Berg's laboratory at Stanford. Berg hoped to transduce bacterial and mammalian cells with a recombinant virus in order to study gene expression systems, but subsequently chose not to carry out the planned experiment. But why, you might ask? It's because he was persuaded by scientific colleagues to consider potential biohazard risks before moving ahead. The process of creating a GMO plant is complex, but it follows these basic steps. First, researchers identify the genes in a plant that causes specific traits, such as resistance to insects. Second, they then make copies of these insect-resistant genes in a lab. Third, scientists next insert the gene copies into the DNA of another plant cell. Fourth, these modified cells are then used to grow new, insect-resistant plants that will go through various reviews and tests before they are sold to farmers. Following the advancement of recombinant DNAs, the next is the technology for propagating and expressing recombinant genes, which was invented by Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer in 1973. It enabled the transformation of bacterial cells into living factories for the directed manufacture of select proteins. The technology was immediately recognized as a tool that can greatly contribute to genetics, and was soon applied to practical ends in a wide variety of fields, including medicine, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, chemicals, and energy. It has since transformed the world in which we live. As recombining DNA progressed, humankind already created its first GMO available in the market. In the year 1994, Calgene commercialized Flower Saver, a tomato that claims to have longer shelf life and tastier compared to ordinary tomatoes. It was approved by the US FDA and requires no special label on these genetically engineered tomatoes, as there's no evidence that can prove that this can impose certain health risk. It was well praised by the public, and it has different tastes from ordinary tomatoes. The ordinary tomatoes are usually picked when it is still unripe or color green. It is ripened unnaturally with ethylene gas, leading to a taste similar to unripe tomatoes. Flower Saver, on the other hand, can be picked even though it is already ripe, as storing it for longer periods of time won't affect the tomato's quality. Role of recombinant DNA in the food industry. GMO, or genetically modified organism, is a plant, animal, microorganisms, or other organisms whose genetic makeup has been modified in a laboratory using genetic engineering or transgenic technology. This creates combination of plant, animal, bacteria, and virus genes that do not occur in nature or through traditional crossbreeding methods. Genetic engineering doesn't only occur in organisms but also happens in the food industry. Genetic engineering affects many of the products that we consume on a daily basis. You probably don't notice it, but based on an article published by the US Food and Drug Administration, it states that it is very likely that you are eating foods and food products that are made with the ingredients that come from GMO crops. Many GMO crops are used to make ingredients that Americans eat, such as cornstarch, corn syrup, corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil, and granulated sugar. Recombinant DNA technology has significant applications that have made it possible to generate novel enzymes that are ideal for specified food processing conditions. This helps the production, shelf life, and prevents the colonization of microbial organisms to the product. In 1940, the papaya ring spot virus in Hawaii was first detected and began affecting crop yields by the 1950s. By the late 1990s, papaya ring spot virus had affected every papaya producing region in Hawaii, resulting in the production dropping by over 50% between 1993 and 2006. The Department of Agriculture of Hawaii began funding research on genetically modified varieties of papaya that would be resistant to the ring spot virus. Within 2 years of production approval, GM papaya accounted for over half of all the papaya production. 10 years later, GM papaya accounted for over 90% of the papaya production, saving the Hawaiian papaya industry from totally collapsing. Another example of widely used GMO product is BT corn. Philippines is the first country in Southeast Asia to approve the commercial cultivation of a genetically modified crop for feed and food. BT corn in the Philippines was designed to be resistant to the Asiatic corn borer, ACB, Ostrinia fornicalis, one of the nation's most destructive corn pests. The crop also presents a practical and ecologically sustainable solution for poor corn farmers, everywhere to increase their yields and decrease pesticide use, improving their health and livelihoods, alleviating poverty. How about meat products? Do we have any GMO meat products on our market? As of now, we only have one GMO meat product approved by the FDA. It's the Aqua Advantage salmon, an Atlantic salmon that has been genetically modified to reach an important growth point faster. This genetically modified salmon has been developed to actually benefit the environment, like conserve wild population of fish, reduce carbon emissions, and provide low-impact fish farming.
GMO, WTO, G.I. Joe, OMG.
Well, why people oppose GMOs even though science says that they are safe? Genetically modified organisms, or GMO, have been met with enormous public opposition over the past 2 decades. Many people believe that GMOs are bad for their health. Others go as far as calling it poison.
It stands to reason that GMOs are dumb and stupid and poison, and Monsanto must be stopped.
And that they damage the environment. This is in spite of overwhelming scientific evidence that proves that GMOs are safe to eat and that they bring environmental benefits by making agriculture more sustainable. Why is there such a discrepancy between what science tells about GMOs and what people think?
I explained that genetic engineering, the process of moving genes between species, has been used for more than 40 years in wines, in medicine, in plants, in cheeses. In all that time, there hasn't been a single case of harm to human health or the environment. But I say, look, I'm not asking you to believe me. Science is not a belief system. My opinion doesn't matter. Let's look at the evidence. After 20 years of careful study and rigorous peer review by thousands of independent scientists, every major scientific organization in the world has concluded that the crops currently on the market are safe to eat, and that the process of genetic engineering is no more risky than older methods of genetic modification. These are precisely the same organizations that most of us trust when it comes to other important scientific issues, such as global climate change or the safety of vaccines.
Commercial time! This video is sponsored by the Doc Adam Blender. This is great for smoothies, protein shakes, and you can take it anywhere at any time. If you want to be a little bit more healthy, or kung gusto mo magpataba or magpapayat, then this is a great addition to your life. I really do love this blender. Not only is it a great blender, but it also helps support the channel. Maraming kasi tumutulong sa akin dyan sa Pilipinas. People who help me make this channel happen para magbigay ng health tips sa inyong lahat. Kailangan ko sila magpasahod because they're helping me. And the blender and Doc Adam products really help support and keep the channel going.
Bilang magsasaka, malaki na yung tulong ng GMO. Dahil sa paggamit ng GMO, maiiwasan na namin ang paggamit ng pesticides at ng mga halong kemikal. Dahil sa hindi rin namin paggamit ng mga kemikal at ng pesticides, nakaiwas kami sa karamdaman dahil ang paggamit nito ay nakakasama sa kalusugan. At isa pa din ng dahilan ay hindi na kami bibili ng kemikal at ng pesticides, at dahil doon, mababawasan na aming gastusin sa pagtatanim. Nabalitaan ko rin sa aking kumpare sa Hawaii na dati kong katrabaho dito sa sakahan, nagkaroon sila ng issue patungkol sa peste. Dahil doon, hindi nagkaroon ng magandang bunga ito. Nagkaroon ng sirang pananim, at dahil doon wala rin silang kinita. Buti na lang ang kanilang pamahalaan ay kagad na rumisponde patungkol dito at pinayagan na at pinahintulutan ang paggamit ng GMO sa kanilang papaya. Dahil dito, maganda ang naging bunga. Bumalik na lumbalik ang kanilang kabuhayan, hindi na nag-shortage ang kanilang papaya, at pwede na sila ulit mag-export. So, maganda talaga ang GMO, lalo na sa pagtatanim at sa pagsasaka.
Nabalitaan ko nga yung GMO na yun sa tropa kong magsasaka. Akala ko nga sa alaman lang pwede yun eh, pala. Pwede rin sa isda. Paunti na nga yung mga nauhuli kong salmon dahil sa overfishing. Tapos kung magpa-farm ka naman, habutin ka ng 3 taon. Tapos yung mga kakumpetensya pa namin, yung mga malalaking kumpanya. Ano laban namin dun? Nung una, nagdududa ako sa GMO na yan. Kasi baka may epekto sa mga kakain. Maapektuhan yung mga kalusugan nila. Pero nung nabalitaan ko na FDA approve yung GMO, agad na po ko yung attention ko dun. Tapos nawala yung mga pangamba ko. Ngayon, yung mga alaga kong salmon, masasabi ko na mas maganda kaysa organic na salmon. Dahil nga sa bilis nilang paglaki, wala namang pinagbago pagdating sa lasa nilang dalawa.
Hindi na dapat pinapayagan yung mga GMO na produkto dahil masama daw yan sa kalusugan eh. May nabasa nga ako sa Facebook na nagdudulot daw ng cancer yung GMO. At saka paano kung allergic ako sa peanut, tapos pinaghalo yung peanut tsaka kamatis, di magiging allergic na rin ako sa kamatis. Ako, kaya di ko talaga sinasaportahan yung GMO na yan eh. Sama talaga sa kalusugan.
Kalapastanganan yan para sa Diyos. Dahil binabago natin ang mga bagay na ginawa niya. Paano niyo nasisikmurang kainin yung mga yan? Anong akala niyo? Diyos ba kayo? Para baguhin ang mga bagay na ginawa ng may kapal para sa atin? Ha?
The pros and cons of GMO. Many GMO crops have been genetically modified to express a gene that protects them against pests and insects. GMO crops have been modified with genes that help them survive stressful conditions, such as drought, and resist diseases like blights, resulting in a higher yield for farmers. GMO lower the cost for the farmers and consumers, because it allows a greater crop yield and growth through harsher conditions. GMO can increase the nutritional value of foods. Genetic modification may be used simply to enhance the flavor and appearance of food, such as the non-browning apple. GMO foods are easier and less costly for farmers to grow, which makes them cheaper for the consumer. GMO techniques may also enhance food nutrition, flavor, and appearance. Cons. Not really cons, but key points raised by the anti-GMO activists. Allergies. This is because GMO foods contain foreign genes, so some people worry that they may harbor genes from foods that may prompt an allergic reaction. Although allergy concerns are valid, there have been no reports of allergic reactions to GMO foods currently on the market. According to FDA, researchers who develop GMO foods run tests to ensure that allergens aren't transferred from one food to another. Cancers. Similarly, there's a common cancer concern that GMO foods may aid the progression of cancers. Because cancers are caused by DNA mutations, some people fear that eating foods with added GNAs may affect your DNA. Although the American Cancer Society has stated that there's no evidence to link GMO food intake to an increased or decreased risk of cancer. Overall, asking questions like, is organic than GMO? And how do GMOs compare to organic food? Can help you make better sense of what you're feeding yourself and your loved ones. Understanding the pros and cons of both options can also empower consumers. Why pick GMO? GMO lowers price point for consumers, lowers production costs for farmers, provides greater durability and nutritional value for health benefits, increases resistance among crops and plants diseases caused by insects or viruses. It has tastier and more nutritious foods, increases supply of food with reduced cost and longer shelf life, and medicinal foods that can be used as vaccine or other medicines. On the other hand, why use organic? Organic has no use of toxic and persistent pesticides and fertilizers. It has no use of genetically engineered or modified organisms. It has healthier soil through organic farming practices such as crop rotation, pasture grazing, and mulch. Organic meats don't contain any growth hormones. Animals raised organically aren't given any antibiotics. Organic soil better conserves water, fosters biodiversity, combats erosion, and mitigates climate change for significant and environmental gains.